Hello and welcome, this is Hawkissimo, and in this video I'm going to be talking about Ratatoskr, the Sly Messenger, or a Norse assassin. I think that this is one of the easier assassins to pick up, so I think it's a great buy if you're delving into the assassins, and I wanted to make out this video as a shout out to somebody who I play with whose name sounds a little bit like Bob Marley and the Mighty Quinn. I think you'll know who you are when you watch this. Okay, so let's get on to it. We'll start with the ability builder and then go into the item builder. And I believe that I have both an A and B build for Ratatoskr, but it's possible I don't because I'm pretty confident in the build that I have, but we'll see. All right, the ability builder. So the sequence you have above is the one that I feel that you should populate. So if you're 1 through 20 or blank, you should go into the ability builder and populate them as you see above. I start with Flurry to get wave clear. Of course, the dart is both an initiator and an escape. So as such, pick it up. Go ahead and pick up Acorn Blast so that you have access to all three abilities at level 3, particularly useful for the casual modes that this guide is intended for, i.e. Clash, my favorite, or Siege, Arena, or Joust. So that'll give you full access to your kit. Then you're going to come back into Flurry, pick up your ultimate, and then you're going to ignore your ultimate until late game. And the reason for that is that the ultimate is just as often used as an escape as not. Plus, it's only 60 points of damage per scaling with no incremental effect or reduction on the cooldown. So as such, I think it's better to focus on these three abilities. I'll let you read all of them in your own time, as well as the passive, but by all means, you should definitely do that. And progress as the sequence indicates. I know that I mention this all the time, but this is not a conquest build. If you want conquest builds, there are lots of players online that are much more qualified to provide you those guides. I can tell you, for instance, that Weaken likes to level his Acorn Blast more aggressively than I do. In Conquest, of course, he's the jungle specialist, or one of many of the jungle specialists on the pro scene, so he's a little bit more accurate with that, and I think you get better versatility from the engage and disengage out of dart. And in particular, the build that I have is going to be built around trying to allow you to use your dart as both an initiator and an escape. And how? Well, by working on cooldown. So you can read that the ability of this gets reduced by 1 second for each enemy god hit by Flurry or your Acorn Blast. In other words, your 2 and your 3. And it starts at 12 seconds. And so by reducing your cooldown and hitting people with these, we get this back very quickly. And so that's going to be the theme of the build that I'm going to provide. So on to my Diamond Assassin friend, into the item builder. All right, well, I think Rat works with lots of different things. As a starter item, I find that Bluestone is the more aggressive of the options. You'll get your MP5 and you'll get more damage out. Certainly he works with Death's Toll, and I don't want to dissuade you from that, but if you're looking to get those early kills and you want that extra MP5, Bluestone Pendant is nice. Certainly if you're a little bit more sloppy with your health, you can get Sustain out of your auto attacks with Death's Toll, and you have that extra 100 health. So either one, fine. I'm going to recommend Bluestone, but your mileage may vary. Ratatoskr does not ever have the capability to buy boots. However, he has an item that's unique to him, so let's go take a look at it. This item starts with some movement speed on it. Then you can pick up additional to get more move speed and physical power. And finally, at its last stage, you'll get 50 power, 20 movement speed, equaling boots. And anytime you use an ability that successfully hits any target, so not just an enemy god, but minions and camps and monsters, then you're also going to get a heal off. So for its dollar cost, one of the most efficient items, if not the most efficient item in the game. By the way, you can level that from anywhere on the board. More useful for conquest than the other modes, but still useful nonetheless. You will, however, have a 2 or 3 second delay while you're purchasing that. So keep that in mind. You'll want to not be in harm's way when you do that. Of course, go ahead, pick up consumables, and in these casual modes, you return to Fountain much more, which means you get more bang for your buck by going into the chalices. However, if you want to go normal potions, there's nothing wrong with that. As always, I'll throw out the mention that I'm a big proponent of wards. However, I know that in casual mode, you'll see a lot less warding than you should see. And if you want to be on the more selfish side of things and simply pick up 1 blue mana potion, so that if your mana starts to get low and you still want to linger in lane to either confirm a kill or clear another wave, go ahead and gobble the 50 gold potion and do the things that you need to do. All right, on to the main build. And as I discussed, it's really trying to get this cooldown. So with this in mind, we're going to go ahead and pick up Hydra's Lament. I always find it in the cooldown tree. You're going to see that it gives you the 40 power, the 10% cooldown, and it has those passives to help you get extra damage after you use an ability. And 8 seconds is forever, so you have plenty of time to use that. And you also start to recover mana back quickly. Very useful for an assassin that's going to be popping his abilities like their popcorn. So go ahead and pick that up. I like to pick that up before Joe turns. It's a more aggressive stance, but if you want to flip the sequence of these two, nothing wrong with that. Joe turns, of course, has 40 power, 20% cooldown, 150 mana, and 10 points of penetration, so useful. After that, I like to go ahead and pick this up. Go ahead and find it under movement. Heartseeker is right here. You can see it doesn't have a lot of power, but it is giving you more penetration and move speed to let you really confirm getting out of harm's way or chase people down. Plus, it has that extra effect of letting you stack up 5 basic attacks. You'll see above your life bar this symbol of this golden dagger with the 5, and at that point, you've got its passive fully stacked. The next time you cast an ability, you're going to get 100% of your physical power added to the damage that you would do otherwise. So that's very nice. I do like to pick up penetration as we get into the late stages of the game to help bang down objectives being towers, phoenixes, as well as the big monsters, Titan for the win, but also Gold Fury, Apotheosis, and Clash, the Fire Giant, etc. Each of the modes has something there to kill. So go ahead and pick up Titan's Bane. If, however, you're in one of those weird games where you're playing against a lot of hunters and mages and none of them have built armor, go ahead and pick up Crusher here in the flex pick, and then when you sell your bluestone, you'll pick up Titan's Bane. That's perfectly fine. The reason that Crusher is here, and this is the final piece in this puzzle, is that it's also attack speed, it's also pen, but it's the passive that we're looking at here. So successfully hitting an enemy god with a basic attack will subtract 1 second from all your abilities on cooldown. And while it only happens once every 5 seconds, what it lets you do is it lets you dash in, auto attack if you want, or dash in, hit your little whirly Q on your 2, go ahead and throw your acorns with your 3 and get the stun off, then auto attack and knock down 1 second from all 3 of those abilities. Likewise, if you ult in and then dash and then do your swirlies, strip protections, then throw your acorn to give them a stun, you'll find that your dash is almost immediately back up again. So that's the theory of the build that I've laid out for you on the A build. So now let's talk relics. Of course, these 2 relics are the go-to. Assassins want to come in, really burst through their abilities and their auto attacks and then get out. Either they've gotten their kill or they haven't, but you don't tend to want to linger in some protracted fight. That is not your mission. Leave that to the warriors. Leave that to the people with distance and poke. Get in, get out. However, that changes if you get your reset and there's somebody else who's hurt in the area because of the sequence that I described above, because we do have things on quick cooldown. Nothing wrong with picking up this. I know it got nerfed in 4.10, but it's still reasonable to pick up. Finally, another starter item that I find is useful with Rat is Bracer of Undoing. You know, again, if you're going to dash in and you're going to burst a lot into a big team, you know, typically if Rat lands on his ult, he gets a lot of attention from the enemy team. Panic attention often, but attention nonetheless. So they try and burst you down. Having this does two useful things, right? It's knocking down 3 seconds on all your abilities. And I've already shown you how your abilities are going to come back real quick. So this guarantees that you're going to have a full cycle of your 1, 2, 3 again, which obviously is useful. But also, it's going to restore 50% of that health. So certainly putting that here is very viable. Finally, depending on who you're facing, if you're going to linger, you know, hey, picking up Horrific Emblem isn't the worst thing in the world. It slows them, it reduces their attack speed, really lets you do your thing. Nothing wrong with that. I don't, as I mentioned, Sunder, Shield of Thorns, you know, if they're going to focus you, why not reflect that damage? So I've given you a couple different options and the thoughts behind them, and it's always the thoughts behind them that I think that is important when watching a guide or reading a guide online. You know, just seeing the item in and of itself in a vacuum doesn't really teach you anything. You've got to understand the thought process so that you can understand how these items will work with different characters in different situations. All right, so let's go into an alternate build. Apparently I do have one. So we would still start with a starter item plus your acorn. Here I'm less focusing on getting hard into the cooldown and instead bringing in Shifter's Shield. Now Shifter's Shield with the 4.9 buff became even more viable for even more players. I was already a big proponent of it in Season 3 for certain warriors and certain assassins like Thor. I used it on a lot since he often ults right into the midst of the whole enemy team and as a consequence starts to get focused. For that same reason, this item works very well on Rat. And of course this item gives you both attack power and defense. More attack power, 70 in fact, when you're healthy, above 50% health, and more defense when you're below 50% health, so you go from 15% or 15 points of physical and magical defense to 50. So really letting you accomplish the things that you do. I already explained why these items would be in here. And again, you could put Titan's Bane in here if you need to pick up some of the slack for your hunter who's not getting the objective damage done, and or you feel like you want to try and fight against more tanky opponents. As an assassin, I tend to like to pick out the squishiest of targets, i.e. the mages and the hunters, but you know, the flexibility is there for you to pick this up in that next slot. So if you wanted to go like that and then sell your starter and go into Crusher, nothing wrong with that, but going into Crusher and then this would be perfectly fine. Now let's talk about some of the other flex picks that we didn't talk about before. So this would be a perfectly viable build, or just reversing these. Whoops, sorry, reversing these. So it was like this would be fun. If you're facing opponents that have a lot of either self-heal or team heal, Brawler's Beatstick is great. It's 40 power, it's 15 pen, and has that 40% reduction to all healing, which includes lifesteal, potions, abilities, items. You know, shut that right down. It's 8 seconds of shutdown when you hit him with an ability, and the Rat is going to have rapid access to his ability, so it works very, very well with him. let's say that, again, you're facing a bunch of squishies and they haven't really built up armor. If you wanted to, in your final slot, go Bloodforge, so that when you get a kill, you get that health shield that's up and the extra move speed. Perfectly legit. It's a big power spike. If you look on the right-hand column, you'll see that I go from 230 power to 305, and my melee damage, or my basic attack damage, goes up as a consequence. So nothing wrong with that. I put this in for a weird dialogue. I mentioned before how you can be in this situation where your team is not really pushing objectives effectively, and this sometimes happens to me in Conquest, and I know typically my guides aren't about Conquest, but I'm going to take an exception here with Ratatoskr, because I find more often than not when I jungle with him and my party's letting me down, I have to put the shoulder of burden on my shoulders, my little Ratatoskr shoulders, to try to rip down infrastructure. And the way that I do that is by picking up either Wing Blade, or I'll show you the other item in the tree. So we'll come down here to movement. Relic Dagger and Wing Blade both serve the same kind of purpose, right? So what I'm doing is I'm building more movement speed, so I have even more maneuverability. With Wing Blade, I also pick up a little bit of attack speed, but that's not why I'm picking it up. I'm picking it up for the crowd control reduction and the extra health, plus its passive, the anti-slow. It lets me be more aggressive in pushing those objectives on my own and letting the team sit back and defend, or monkey around and do whatever stupid stuff they're doing while I push us towards endgame. So I think that this is effective. For the same reason, I did not mean to leave that, so let's just come back to it. For the same reason, Relic Dagger can do the same thing, right? It's a little bit less health, but you pick up some cooldown reduction, so perfectly works into this kit. In addition, your relics pick up 20% cooldown. That can be just as effective against as the anti-slow. So depending on what you're facing, either of these two can really help you push this. This can also work wonders if you've decided to do something like this. And I think that that's the better of the two combos, right? So mitigating that damage for 2 seconds just off the starter item, plus being able to shred tanky guys with this, and then getting them both back on 20% bonus cooldown for this item is certainly worth consideration. So that concludes my thoughts about Ratatoskr. Again, he's a fun god. He's a simple god, but simple in that his combination of attacks is fairly straightforward. So, you know, he's a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. I think he has a lot of great skins. You know, let's talk about his skin for a second. I think his Eager skin is awesome. I love both of these. Well, hell, I love all of his skins. I mean, this card is great. He's hugging his nut. That's the best nut in the world, the best acorn in the world. This one has great VGSs on it. So, if you found any of this video helpful and useful to learn the ways of Ratatoskr, please give me a like. Click the bell to be notified of when I post new videos. Please, by all means, give me a subscribe. I greatly appreciate all of the likes, subscribes, bells, and comments. If you have comments or questions, go ahead and put them below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you very much for tuning in, and this is Hawkissimo signing out.